Thank you, Madam President, for convening this dialogue, and thank you, Mr. Otunu, for presenting your vision. Good afternoon, colleagues. I speak on behalf of the Accountability, Coherence and Transparency Group, a cross-regional group of 27 member states committed to a transparent and accountable UN. We have two questions. The ACT Group has developed a code of conduct regarding Security Council action against genocide, crimes against humanity or war crimes. This code of conduct urges Security Council members to pledge against voting no on credible draft resolutions aimed at preventing or halting genocide, crimes against humanity or war crimes, and encourages all Council members to take timely decisive action during mass atrocities. It is supported by 130 member states. How do you see the SG's role in promoting the implementation of this code of conduct? And the second question, the selection and appointment process for the SG is fundamentally a joint process between the Security Council and the GA. But it is not the only area where they have a complementary mandate. How do you see the role of the GA in the maintenance of international peace and security? I thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of Switzerland on behalf of the ACT Group. Please, Mr. Otunu.
Thank you, Excellency. First, in terms of a joint process, the design of the UN Charter was to have the two bodies work in very close cooperation. And I think we should do everything to restore that the General Assembly and the Security Council work very closely together. Because the full membership is very important. The 15, including the 5, are also very important. So we really should have a cooperation between the two bodies. Now, the General Assembly initially did not have the role of peace and security. But that changed a little bit with the Uniting for Peace resolution, I think 1950. Very rarely used, very sparingly used, but it exists. But the most important thing is we should try not to enlarge polarization and tension within the UN as a body. It's one body. We should promote cooperation. And as Secretary General, I would be a go-between if there was any kind of tension to make sure that I bring the General Assembly, the Security Council, to some kind of cooperation. It is for the benefit of the institution. And I have good experience in working in both. Now, in terms of the code of conduct of which you speak, you know, all my adult life, I have been engaged in the vineyard of promoting human rights. From the time we resisted Idi Amin in Uganda as a young person to this day. More than that, you know that here at the United Nations, it fell to my lot to design, persuade Security Council members, and incorporate the regime for protecting children in situations of war. It is operational to this day. And from that, other mandates have now been added. So these are matters which are very close to my heart, which speaks to my experience, and where I have some idea what to do, where, and with whom.
Thank you, Mr. Otunu. I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of Palau on behalf of the Alliance of Small Island States, followed by Singapore and Australia.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you for convening this important dialogue. And I also wish to thank Mr. Otunu for your interaction with us today. I have the honor to speak on behalf of the 39 members of the Alliance of Small Island States, AOSIS. As a group of countries in special situations, the credibility of the United Nations lies in its ability to respond to the unique circumstances of SIDS, correct long-standing inequities, and deliver results for the most vulnerable. In this regard, allow me to pose the following questions. First, how will you, as Secretary General, ensure that the United Nations system is more accessible, better coordinated, and tailored to the unique vulnerabilities of SIDS to better support the full implementation of the Antigua and Barbuda Agenda for SIDS? And secondly, how will you use your leadership to accelerate global ambition and action on climate change, particularly to keep 1.5 degrees Celsius within reach, while ensuring that SIDS receives scaled-up, predictable, and accessible finance for adaptation, mitigation, and loss and damage in line with international commitments? I thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of Palau on behalf of the Alliance of Small Island States. Please, Mr. Otunu.
Thank you, Excellency. One of the very first systematic studies done on the vulnerability and situation of small island states and small countries was, I think, done under the auspices of the Commonwealth. Sir Sridhar Ramphal was the chair. I was a member of that commission. It did, I think, some of the early work on this matter. I've followed this ever since. I'm very acutely aware of the vulnerability, the situations of island states, small states, landlocked states. My own country of birth is landlocked and small. So I'm very acutely sensitive to the situation, and this will continue to be very much on the agenda of the Secretary General if I'm given the chance, and would certainly be advocate for them in every fora that matters. On the issue of climate change, let me say this. We have a number of very practical, common threats to our common humanity. Climate change is one. Earlier we spoke about how to harness the incredible impact of artificial intelligence. We can multiply the list. I would only appeal to member states that let us approach these common challenges that face humanity with cooperation and innovation, not from the point of view of perhaps ideological clashes and ideological confrontation, but in a very practical, pragmatic way with innovation and what we can do when we cooperate.
Thank Mr. Otunu. I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of Singapore on behalf of the Small States Group.
Thank you very much, Madam President, for convening this meeting, and a warm welcome to Mr. Otunu. Indeed, I have the honor to deliver this statement on behalf of the Small States Group, which is a cross-regional grouping of small states comprising both developed and developing countries. And more than 50 countries have aligned with this statement and will make this list available after this meeting. Madam President and Mr. Otunu, we are living in a volatile and dangerous period in international relations, characterized by geopolitical tension and conflict. And for small states, an effective multilateral system founded on the principles of the UN Charter and international law is not an option, but an existential necessity. The next Secretary General will play a critical role, not only in defending the UN Charter, but also in reinvigorating and reshaping the role and relevance of the UN. And we as small states look to the Secretary General to safeguard the interests of all member states, not just the big major powers and the permanent members, but to look after, in particular, the interests of the smallest, weakest, and most vulnerable members of the UN. We do not want a world of might is right, where international law and the sovereignty and territorial integrity of small states are violated with impunity. The members of the SSG stand ready to work with the next Secretary General and all member states to strengthen the role of the UN and to defend international law and multilateralism. Let me now go to the questions, and I'll focus on two in the interest of brevity. First, what steps, Mr. Otunu, will you take to strengthen the role of the General Assembly, especially at a time when the Council has been unable to take decisive action? And in particular, how will you support and strengthen the office of the President of the General Assembly? Second, the SDGs and the Pact for the Future and the Global Digital Compact are landmark outcome documents which provide a roadmap for global action and partnership. What would you do to accelerate the implementation of the SDGs, the Pact for the Future, and the Global Digital Compact? Thank you very much.
I thank the distinguished representative of Singapore on behalf of the Small States Group. Please, Mr. Otunu.
Thank you very much, Excellency. If I may say so, Excellency, you know, the UN as a multilateral institution is not only crucial for small states, I think it is important for all of us. That is why any reform we carry out should be to strengthen multilateralism, not to kill it. We shouldn't throw away the baby with the water in our reform project. So the sentiments you feel as small states, I think most member states feel. Let us work together to rescue multilateralism, strengthen it, reform the institution. Secondly, the importance of international law. Absolutely, absolutely. I strongly believe in that. I've contributed to that at various levels. I've taught that in various universities. It's very important for me personally and important to this institution. Now, you ask about the General Assembly and the Security Council. You know, the way this institution is designed, perhaps we should make the mistake. The General Assembly cannot take the place of the Security Council. Each have their role well defined within the Charter. But what we should promote, what the Secretary General should encourage, is cooperation between the two bodies, not conflict, not one taking over from the other. That is the way I would approach this. On SDGs, we are not on track to achieve what has been promulgated. I hope we can improve. And if I was elected Secretary General, I would make this a priority because the SDGs are very, very important to our development agenda, especially for the developing countries. And again, as I said earlier, countries must do their homework and be good custodian of the development agenda. They should fight corruption. They should plan. They should invest. They should mobilize what they can domestically. And then ask the Secretary General to help them mobilize what can be mobilized internationally. And I would be ready to do that.
I thank Mr. Otunu. I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of Australia on behalf of Cairns, followed by New Zealand and Uganda.
Madam President, Excellencies, Mr. Otunu, a warm welcome. I have the honour to address you today on behalf of Canada, Australia and my own New Zealand and my own country, Australia. At a time of heightened global uncertainty and complex international challenges, the United Nations' ability to fulfil its core mandate rests on its institutional credibility, capability and capacity. Institutional credibility requires bold and principled leadership, including the ability to deploy the Secretary-General's good officers with political courage and effect. Institutional capability requires a UN that is focused on upholding all three pillars of its work and translates early warning into early action. Institutional capacity requires experienced and ethical management and realistic and fit-for-purpose mandates that sharpen effectiveness and delivery. How do you think the UN80 initiative is working to align leadership, authority and resources to restore confidence in the UN and enable it to deliver results? And how would you build on the UN80 initiative to make it more effective? Thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of Australia on behalf of Cairns. Please, Mr. Otunu.
Thank you very much, Excellency. I agree. All three pillars are very important. We should continue to work on all of them. That being said, it is fair to say that since the UN was founded in the aftermath of this horrific world war and the Holocaust, that particular emphasis should be placed on ending conflicts. And also because of the unbelievable suffering this visits on innocent people. That is why I have flagged the major conflicts going on now as a particular priority of the Secretary General. But all the three pillars are important. We must continue to work on all of them. Now, in terms of resources, it is not easy, and there's no easy answer. What is clear is that the UN is under enormous pressure. It can't carry all this burden. It is the reason why the UN should very intentionally work in partnership with other actors, especially regional organizations. When the UN was founded, there were barely any regional organizations. Thank God today there are several regional organizations, and some have played very useful and very important roles. They should be encouraged. They should be empowered. There should be partnership and cooperation between the UN and the regional bodies. And the UN should also reach out to other actors when